Welcome to the EnsoReal Paradigm Shifters podcast. This show is for and about entrepreneurs who work to improve and expand our human well-being by bringing cutting-edge technologies and ideas to life. Your host is Marie Dahlgren. In this episode, we talk to Richard Atherton. Richard is a partner at First Human, a coaching and consulting practice that helps businesses become more agile. And now, here's the conversation with Richard Atherton.
First of all, thank you for attending this interview. Finally, we meet each other. And my first question for today would be, what's something about you that people would be surprised to know? How do you think?
What would they be surprised to know? What would they be surprised to know about me? Well, there's a British guy called David Icke, who has got some pretty eccentric views about the lizard race.
Yes.
He's in control of all our lives. Well, that guy married my dad's cousin. So I am, related to David Icke, a second cousin of David Icke. Which, most people,
That's really amazing.
I've yet to embrace his lizard-oriented views. But I have run into his kids at weddings who are perfectly normal and great people. So, I'm sure he's a great person. He's just, his views are a little out there.
Do you agree with his point of view on the world and what is going on?
It's certainly not the lizards.
Okay.
Maybe there are some valid points in there, but, maybe he has got some interesting perspectives, but I just can't get past the lizards. I'm sorry.
That's interesting. That's really very surprising to know. Thank you very much. And how would you want to be introduced today to our listeners?
So I'm a business coach, and I help businesses change faster. So businesses that are looking to transform, I help them do that faster, more effectively.
Thank you very much. And you mentioned that you're a partner at First Human.
That's right.
Could you please share a little bit more? What is this company, project?
Yeah.
What is
so it's a coaching and consulting practice, and we help businesses change faster. We also help businesses develop their leaders. And we help businesses become more agile, so faster moving in their marketplace. So those are the three things that we really help businesses with. Yeah.
That's interesting. And I am a business and life coach myself too. And from my experience and what have I seen around me, people who came into coaching, they have usually different background.
Right.
Is it true for you too?
Yeah. So I have a very varied background. So I started as a computer programmer and did a lot of that for the first few years of my career, and then quit corporate world and started a cabaret club in the West End of London. So I was an impresario for a few years, putting on shows, and also became a talent agent.
Interesting.
And then I switched again and became a stand-up comedian for a few years, and was on the stand-up circuit in the UK, and then took a kind of long sabbatical to do a lot of self-work and a lot of therapy, and then kind of came full circle back to working within corporations again, but albeit in this incarnation with a consulting and coaching practice. Yeah.
That's interesting. And why you made this decision to quit corporate world? Why is so?
Well, I think there's two answers to that. There's the superficial answer, which is I didn't feel like I could fully express all of who I was within the corporation I was in.
Yeah.
And what I've been learning more recently, actually, is at a deeper level, I had some fear of success. And I found that as I was climbing higher up this ladder, and it was becoming apparent to me that there was certainly a realistic possibility of me becoming a partner of this big global firm that I was working in. That was certainly possible. there's something in me that kicked in that was fearful of becoming that successful or having that status or something about that progression was scary to me. And I'm now identifying a pattern of switching careers. As soon as I get a certain to a certain position within that career, I start to this subconscious fear of success kicks in.
So it was some kind of self-sabotage.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Interesting. And you mentioned that you're testing actually an old paradigm in corporative world by changing industrial management and shifting into a leader-to-leader mentality. Could you explain a little more for our listeners?
That's right. So, I mean, I suspect this exists in small corporations or large, small companies and large companies. It's just I experience larger companies most. Yeah, but this idea that I suppose, a guiding metaphor for the organization being of an efficient machine, right, which comes from our industrial age, and the humans as resources. And quite literally, we describe human resources as human resources, HR, right? So this idea that that our people are resources, and our goal as managers and leaders is to have them work as efficiently, as effectively as possible. And that if we get all these cogs in the machine working effectively, then we'll have this successful business. And there's a new paradigm which really focus much more on the individual human being, not so much as a resource in this system, but more as an agent in a network, and actually viewing them in terms of the way that they interact with the other humans around them, the other agents in the network, if you like, as being a paradigmatic shift in how we view these things we call organizations. And if we come from that place, we start asking a different set of questions as leaders and as managers.
Interesting. And what do you like the most in coaching? Why coaching? Because there are different ways, like mentoring, training. So why coaching?
Well, I suppose the first thing to say is it's never as clear cut as that. So coaching is always part mentoring, part training, part consulting, part, in my experience, right? I mean, that's so even though my primary mode might be coaching, it's inevitably all of it.
Yeah.
And why do I like it? I think it's because I get a big kick out of the personal progression of the people that I'm working with. You know, if they can feed back to me, oh, you helped me sort of see things in different ways, or we got some result we could have never expected to get without your intervention, or just their lives improve in general. Quite often when I work as a coach on some business problem, the ways in which they might change their behavior in the workplace spills out into home life, and they're telling me, hey, you know, my relationship with my partner improved, or my kids, or, you know, so there are these ripple effects often of a problem or a perspective we either solve or discover in the workplace gives access to a new way of being or a new perspective in their lives in general.
Thank you very much. And what are the most frequent, I would say, requests businesses coming to you when they are seeking help?
So right now, I think because of the place that because I work so much with larger organizations, is that they are under threat of being disrupted, and they know they need to become more agile in their marketplace. They know they need to get to a place where they can be more responsive to new opportunities, competitive threats, and so that's what they're grappling with. You know, how do we have, either it's some specific goal that they're out to achieve, so, you know, create a new channel or a new website or some restructuring, or it's we need to change our culture. You know, we need to have a different way of operating around here. Those are the two challenges that usually come.
And what is this different way of operating in?
Well, I mean, it will be different for different clients, right? I mean, every client will be different and have slightly different goal in terms of what they're seeking to achieve with their culture. But the common theme is we need to be more responsive in our marketplace. You know, we need to be more agile, responsive, and we need to find a better way of unleashing the talent and the opportunity within the organization to respond better.
Thank you very much. And could you share with us, please, what is one fact you would want people to know in general, if you...
About me or about...
It's actually up to you. Maybe about you, maybe about your work, maybe about the world.
Well, I would certainly pick something which is sort of slightly adjacent to what I do professionally, and that's from my experience with therapy, and that is the fact that we carry our past with us all of the time. And it guides how we interact, how we behave, unconsciously, at a subconscious level. And that's a really important fact, right? And then we hold patterns from our earliest experiences of life in the body, and it's influencing us in ways that we're not conscious of, unless we go do the work to uncover them, uncover those patterns in the body, in the thinking processes. So that I believe is a truth of our human existence that perhaps people intuitively accept, but maybe don't really take on as a fact.
And what are these ways maybe to be more conscious about your past in the body, you said? What are the maybe methods or practices how a person could be aware of what is going on with him or himself?
Yeah. So the way that I work with this is I ask myself a series of questions, and so it starts with what happened today. So I pick some moment in my experience over the course of the day, and what happened, what did I feel, and where did I feel it in the body. So that's the access into the present moment, understanding and feeling and realization of what happened to us. And then we progress by asking, and is this familiar?
Interesting.
Is this experience familiar? And often, if we're open to it, and sometimes we need help with this, we can't do it by ourselves, there is some moment in our past where a similar set of feelings emerged. And then you ask the same questions again. Okay, so what happened? What did I feel? Where did I feel it in the body? So we're locating ourselves in the past, that old experience which is unresolved, which resonated with that present moment experience. So now we're locating ourselves in the past. And then there's a really important question is, well, what would I have said, or what would I have done in that moment? And that often releases a lot of emotion, a lot of grief, a lot of expression that didn't get expressed back then, but we still hold on to. And by expressing it and often grieving the loss of not being able to express something and ultimately get some need met, we heal ourselves. And that's an iterative process that, for me, it becomes a sort of almost a, what can we say? A daily practice and almost a discipline that's become almost autonomic for me now. It's like it's part of how I live life. Is where I got to with that. Yeah.
That's interesting. And you mentioned daily routine. Also, what are these daily routines which you have to help you to be disciplined and to be on track every day? Because we all have past, as you said. We all have these stuck emotions in our bodies too. We all have fears and doubts and not so good maybe circumstances. So what is your advice and your routine?
Well, it is to take time to do what I described. And so often I can do that simply mentally. And it often helps to write, to journal as well. So that's the routine as such. And so that's the most important one. I also do yoga every day, and that helps in a different way because it helps me to check into my body. So there's there's been two access points to this mode of healing. One is starts with a mental process,
yes,
the analytical moment where we pick out our day and we use our memory and we recall through that process, and the second is through the body. So if I feel into the physical pain and tension in the body, and that's another access point into these old patterns.
That's interesting. And why did you choose yoga? Because there are a lot of choices, martial arts, meditation. Why yoga, dancing?
Well, yes, because yoga gives you that space to, and I do it private. I mean, I do go to classes, but it's never quite as easy to do the process work when you're in a public class. So the work that I find most rewarding from this perspective is the stuff I do at home in private, because then I can do a pose, feel into it, have some emotion come up, and then process that emotion there and then. So it becomes part yoga session, part personal therapy session, right? So that's why I find together. And I think with the martial arts and something, you've always got a slightly different aim. With the martial arts, it may be your aim is to develop some skill, fighting skill, or discipline.
Yeah.
And with dancing, it may your focus may be on mastering the moves, and it may be, and actually your reward might be around feeling whatever you feel when you're dancing. Whereas in yoga, my goal is to explore the body and to feel what there is to feel and process what there is to process. So it fits.
And what is? I'm sorry, I have a question. And what is breathing for you?
Breathing?
Yeah.
Well, breathing, I mean, I think breathing is important because it can be a way to settle the body and the mind and have you in a place where you can sort of disengage to some extent from whatever the stresses are of the day. And so that's a way for me to ultimately get to a place where I can do some of this processing work. But it's not essential in terms of the way that I use yoga, in the same way that so it's not central for me, right? And I know that for other yogis, of course, it's everything, right? I mean, yoga starts and ends with the breath for many yogis, and I get that. And in the way that yoga is pursued for those yogis, then I get it. But for me, the primary goal is not about connecting with the breath. It's about connecting with the body and the feelings and the emotions and processing them. So.
And when you are connected to your body, to your feelings, when you are processing all these things, when they are aligned inside yourself, what does it give to you? What is the state? How you could describe it?
I mean, it's bloody awful most of the time, right? It's suffering. I mean, it's pain. So what I'm doing is accessing pain and allowing myself to feel pain as a grieving mechanism. So, which again, it goes against a lot of the sort of yogic philosophy, which is often about this, a pursuit of good feelings and positive thoughts and so on. And I reject all of that side of yoga, right? So I'm much more about how can I access my pain, and I get that this isn't so necessarily attractive to most people, but for me, then ultimately the relief that brings over time and the healing that brings over time is what I then benefit from. So in the moment, it can feel pretty shitty, pretty rough. And it's after the fact that the benefits are realized.
Okay, thank you very much. And could you tell us a story of your journey when you experienced the biggest aha moment?
Right. So the biggest aha moment. So one of the big influencers for me in this journey that I've been describing is a guy called Arthur Janoff, who in the 70s wrote a book called The Primal Scream. And in that book, he describes this process that I've just laid out, And in a later book called The Biology of Love, he by which point he'd done a lot of research around the neuroscience that backed up this process that he'd discovered. And I read that book, and in that book there's a lot of emphasis on the birth experience and how our birth affects us and sets up patterns, physiological patterns that stay with us for life. And so I'd been reading this book, and I had always noticed that I had this sort of tendency to gurgle and dribble and sort of have this sort of slightly gross phenomenon that I would that I couldn't quite understand, and I knew it sometimes came up in the gym when I was doing physical exercise, and I'm like, what is this weirdness? And I'd read this book, and I knew that somewhere I knew that I'd had a difficult birth, and then I was in the gym one day, having just recently read this book, and felt this thing happening, and decided to go with it. So I found an empty studio in the gym, a Pilates studio, and just went down on the floor in the studio and went with it, and found myself regressing into my birth experience with all of the sweating and the choking and the gargling and all that went with it. And I was allowing myself to go with it and experience this. And I knew, and this was the aha moment, right? The aha moment was, I know that this isn't auto-suggestion. I cannot just be acting this. I cannot act this huge rise in temperature. I cannot act all this sweat. I'm not capable. It's not possible. It was just inconceivable to me that this was not something real. And so I was like, okay, there's something in me that I've just expressed that I've not put on, that's meaningful, that sort of validates this hunch I have that yes, there's something in my past, and it's probably my birth has a huge that's to do with this. That Janov is talking about in his book, that I need to go explore more. And after that aha moment, not long after that, I was on a plane to Los Angeles and to the center that Janov had set up, and that's really kicked off then a decade of this self-work that I've reaped the benefits of over time.
And how it helped you, this self-work and this moment, aha moment, how did it help you in your life, in your maybe inner feeling, in your being again aligned with yourself?
Yeah, so it's I've really transformed who I am. I mean, so I'm calmer, I'm more mature, I'm more able to maintain intimate relationships. I'm now in a stable relationship with 2 young boys, 15-month-old twins. So I've become more confident. I've become a better leader. I mean, I could go on, and it after all. But so it's, I suppose, a transformation of my body and my personality and who I am, right? And these are cellular level patterns that I'm disrupting through this work, I believe. So it's a very deep process, and I experience it in the yoga in the way that the poses, my ability to do certain poses has changed a lot over time, and that's deeper than just having repeated the physical movements. I believe a lot of that is because I've simultaneously been resolving stuck patterns in the body.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing. And if I would ask you, what is your superpower, or if you would have this superpower, what is one thing you would want to change in the world? How do you think?
Oh, well, that's 2 different questions. So maybe I should start with the superpower. So I suppose the superpower I've developed is this ability to access my past experiences and heal them, and in so doing transforming who I am. So that's a superpower I've developed. Change the world. Well, I suppose it's by sharing this message, because I think the more that people are able to resolve their pasts, the the better humans they can be in the moment, in the present, and the bigger impact they can have on the world. And the more they can show up in their relationships, the more loving they're able to be, the just the better. Because all of this hurt people. So the extent to which we are holding pain is the extent to which we inflict pain on others. Yeah. So there's an awful lot for the world to gain from people doing this deep inner work.
That's interesting. And how are you going to do this? I mean, to spread the message all over the globe?
Coming on shows like this. Yeah, like taking opportunities to share it. And I do share some, I share this when there are opportunities in my work in corporate life, and I bring some of this understanding into the workshops I do within in businesses. So there's opportunities there to share it. So I think making this part of sort of acceptable discourse is one way to do this. We tend to shy away from all childhood and past and trauma, and these topics tend to be a little bit taboo. Or that's something you take to your therapist, right? That's something that's something you discuss over there. Mm-hmm. And so the more if there's an opportunity for me to help that content be more part and parcel of daily conversations, then that would, I think, help enormously.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. And what is your strangest talent? How do you think?
Strangest talent?
Mm-hmm.
God, have I got any strange talents? Wow, I've never even... See, I want to have some crazy musical instrument that I'm a master of, but I don't have it. God, I don't know. Honestly, what the hell is my strength? I mean, I suppose this is what I've just been described as pretty damn strange, right? I mean, you don't meet very many people who say, "Oh yeah, I've done a lot of work on my birth." And I've experienced benefits from resolving my birth issues. That's pretty strange, I'd imagine.
And how it actually feels like to be you? How do you think?
Right now it feels pretty good. Pretty tired to be me with the two boys, and they're not sleeping through right now. So tired. On good days, grounded. And on bad days, not so grounded.
They grow up very fast, I would say. So.
You have children?
Oh yes, I have. I have a son. He's 11. Will be soon. He's turning 11 this summer. So yes, they are growing up very, very.
And they do eventually sleep through the night. That's what I need to hear.
Could you share with us, please, what is the single biggest challenge or problem you're dealing with currently in your business?
So I think, what we tend to be very effective when we engage with clients. But I think there's something about how do we market what we have to offer in a way that people really get, because it's often a little bit outside of the normal business discourse. And so it's how do we stay true to what it is we've got to offer and how it's distinctive, but have it be understandable and comprehensive to people who are kind of ready to work with us. So I think there's something about the communicating our value is a challenge for us right now that we're working on. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And what are you trying to solve currently in your life?
Probably what we've just spoken about, actually. So building a thriving business. We've got a great business right now, and it's, I suppose, building momentum at it and have it be as impactful as it can possibly be. Yeah.
And what would be the ideal vision for your business? How do you think? Let us say in 5 years from now.
Having a huge impact on being able to look back and say, hey, we've had a huge impact on the discourse within organizations. You know, we've had an impact on what that looks like, and we've opened it up and deepened it in a way that increases human flourishing and ultimately means businesses themselves that we work with having a bigger impact.
That's interesting. And why it's so important for you?
Because I think I suppose there's something about my childhood and my upbringing where perhaps I didn't always feel like there was the space for me to fully express and flourish at the level that I could do. And as I've discovered, a lot of that was driven by my internal blockages, if you like, but at least some of that was down to the environment. So I think there's probably something from childhood that means that I want to have a space for more flourishing in the world, and my access to that is through work with organizations. And so I think that's what drives. I mean, it's a good question, and there's probably a deeper answer to that if I were to dwell on it. But yeah, that off the cuff, that's what comes. Yeah.
And when you're having all this experience, whom do you become?
Well, a leader and a healer and a facilitator of change.
What is the most important role in these roles you told me about now?
It's somewhere between leader and healer. Maybe healer, slightly more leader, healer. I need a word that means leader or healer. Yeah. So something in there. Probably healer just edges it. Healer closely followed by a leader.
Healer. That's interesting. That's beautiful. So you're a healer. And I believe that the fastest and the most efficient way to connect with people, including your audience and with all the people, is to share your values. Could you share with us and our listeners your values? What are these things which you value the most in your life?
My values: family, love, courage, truth. Maybe that's enough.
And what is your mission?
It's to create leaders in organizations. My mission is to create powerful leaders in organizations.
Leaders or healers or both?
Leaders, I think. Leaders right now. I think we need leaders. Leaders who create the space for healing. I think my sense is right now, it's really, that's why I was jostling between the two earlier. There's a need for a certain level of courage and leadership in opening the conversation, or at least opening conversations that allows more healing and ultimately more flourishing. And so, but it feels like right now is what is being called for is leadership in that space.
Thank you very much. And is it right to tell that you're a whole person?
Oh, am I a whole person?
Yeah.
Am I a whole person? Well, I suppose we'd have to. Of course. I suppose it does. If the question is there any part of me that's not yet sort of fully integrated into my consciousness, then there probably are still parts of me that I'm not fully aware of, or that I'm not fully integrating. So, on that basis, I would say no, I'm not a whole person. But I am certainly a lot more whole than I was 10 years ago.
That's great. That's great. What would you say is your passion? How do you think?
Yeah, my passion right now is my family. I think providing for my family, providing on all levels. So financially, providing love for my children, for my partner, providing a great environment for them to grow up with. Those are my passions.
And you know that everybody during the course of his or her life experience failure. So my next question, tell us a story of your time and your journey when you experienced the biggest failure and how did you overcome it? Please.
Biggest failure. One of those funny questions, isn't it? Because all failures in retrospect look like they were valuable. So
what makes them so valuable? Because there are different attitudes towards failures. Some people they're totally broken by this experience. Some feel like it's just a teacher, as you said, valuable information and valuable lessons.
I suppose that's interesting. I don't think I've ever had an experience in life which has had me feel totally broken. So I don't think I've ever experienced what someone might describe as abject failure, or
that's good.
Where I've experienced destitution, or I mean, there has been relationships that have failed, and I felt sad. There have been businesses that so much have failed that I've chosen to sort of quit. That tends to be more my pattern. It's not so much that something failed; it's more that I quit something. Yeah. I don't know. It's not something I really think. It's honestly, I don't sort of form in my mind experiences that I then label as failure. Okay. I just don't have really that as part of my consciousness. Why I'm finding it difficult to answer the question is, it's not like I think, oh yeah, there was that failure, and then I failed at that. I just don't ever. It just doesn't really even enter my mind. I was like, oh, I had that experience, or that happened, or I tried that thing and learned that wasn't the thing. Like I can think of in my early days with some of the therapeutic experiences, I tried with this one therapist who's very analytical in nature and kept it all very cognitive. And he was all about, your templates and your thoughts about this and that, and to reframe your thoughts. And, I spent some money with this guy, and then I was like, man, I need to go deeper than this. I can't, this isn't about my damn thoughts. And so you could say, well, that was a failure. I spent however much with this guy and it didn't work.
What have you learned? What are the main lessons?
Yeah, exactly. But that, if I hadn't experienced that and really got to know that I definitely didn't want to do a cognitive behavioral therapy was just entirely ineffective. If I hadn't learned that, then I would have never discovered the deeper work. So, and I've never been so motivated to do the deeper work. So it was like it had to happen.
That's interesting. Thank you. And what scares you?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I have some fear about the business right now. We're in an early stage startup. We've only been going a few years, and it's a little bit, we're doing some great work, and there are some challenges. So there's some fear about, does the business pan out? Does it thrive at the level I want it to thrive at, that we want to thrive at? We want it to thrive at, the three of us involved. So yeah, I'd be lying if I didn't say there's some fear around that. Can I get the right balance between focus on work and focus on kids? And fearful I'm getting that right? Is it, don't want to work so hard I don't ever see them? Equally don't want to work so little I don't have any financial resources to support them. So there's that's a fear for me right now. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing. And another question: what keeps you awake at night?
Screaming kids. That's an easy one.
Yeah. And how this idea to create coaching business came to you? Do you remember exactly the moment when you said yes?
Well, yeah. So there's not. I sort of integrated myself into that company over a period of about 9 months, where I just had more and more conversations with a guy who was running a similar company, and then we sort of joined forces to create First Human. And I suppose I was just attracted to the conversation because I found that in my business conversations that I was having at that time, there was a level of depth that was missing for me in those conversations. They were, they seemed to be, in retrospect, at quite surface level and weren't necessarily going into the deeper currents of what may have been driving certain behaviors in businesses or outcomes. And then this group of people seemed to be having conversations at a depth that felt much more fulfilling for me. And so there was a growing realization that really I needed to spend more time in this in that set of conversations and less time in the conversations I was in. So
that's great.
That's what motivated me.
And why it's First Human? Why did you choose such a name? And
yes, because our stance is that all business challenges and problems are really they're really people problems, right? Or people opportunities.
Yeah.
So it made sense. So we're about putting the human first, and then human first sounded a bit sort of soft or something. It didn't really ring. But then First Human felt more punchy to me. And it had this connotation of, first human on the moon or up Everest. It had this sense of pioneering spirit, but also carried this message of we're about putting the person first or the people first in terms of understanding business issues. So
and why it's so important for you to be this pioneering spirit?
Well, I suppose that I've always enjoyed that. I've always been, ever since I was a kid, it's a big part of my personality. I was very independent from a very young age. Right, as soon as I had a bicycle, I was cycling miles and miles away or across the countryside. And I took my first independent holiday when I was 4 years old. I visited my grandparents alone, and so I've always had that drive, I suppose, to explore. I went off exploring Africa when I was 18, by myself. So I've had that in me. So yeah, I suppose I need.
You said exploring Africa when you were 18.
Yeah.
Could you share a little bit more about this experience? It's quite interesting.
Yeah. So I went and lived in Tanzania when I was 18 in a town called Moshi, which is in the north of Tanzania, on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro, and I taught in a girls' boarding school there. I taught maths, physics, and volleyball in the school there, and then also did some travel around.
And why did you do this? And why did you choose this particular country?
Because I was a very shy kid, and I thought. There was a part of me that thought, well, how could I cure my shyness? Well, I suppose teaching 40 African kids would probably, having to get up in front of 40 Africans and teach them physics would probably be quite a good challenge for my confidence levels and shyness. So that was the primary motivation, actually, was become less shy. So, it wasn't to save Africa. It was entirely selfish. But yeah, and why Tanzania? Well, it was actually coming home from a nightclub drunk. I saw it in the back seat of someone's car, and there was a pamphlet that was offering people to go do ski seasons, like where you would go and help out, clean rooms in a hotel for a season in a ski resort and ski all day, or you could do this mission to Africa. There's a company offering this, and we could go do this mission in Africa to teach in schools. So I did the Africa mission thing, and that got me out there. And then once I was out there, I did quite a lot of independent travel. Yeah.
And what have you learned from this experience in Africa?
Well, I learned what it felt like to be on the other end of racism. So that was interesting. You know, being a white guy in England, not that I've ever been overtly racist, but I suppose we never really know what it means to feel, you know, to be on the other end of racism. But in Tanzania, I experienced several incidences of people being racist towards me as a white guy. So that was instructive. You know, it gave me some empathy for people who experienced that.
Okay.
I suppose there's something about actually humans are humans. I mean, I can remember many incidences of staying up late with, you know, African guys, often much older than me, in bars or whatever around the place, and connecting and sharing stories and having jokes. And so I suppose it had me realize that, you know, that we share. It's obvious now. It's sort of almost cliche, but we share a lot more with other human beings than we may think we do on the surface when we look at their cultures and how they behave or dress or whatever it might be.
Thank you very much for the interview. And I wish you good evening. Thank you.